That's not who we are. That's not what Massachusetts is all about.
New COVID boosters are being rolled out this week for Americans already fully vaccinated. And Biden advisor Dr. Anthony Fauci says we might get COVID shots every year.
We likely are moving towards a path with a vaccination cadence similar to that of the annual influenza vaccine.
Dr. Fauci expects the boosters to be updated to whatever strain is dominant. The new boosters will target the Omicron variant.
Fox's Ryan Schmelz. The leaders of China and Russia will be getting together next week, and that's the first time since February when they pledged to have great relations ahead of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. America's listening to Fox News.
Attention all business owners who rent or lease space, including storage space. Stop wasting your money paying someone else for your space. You can now save a ton of money and own your own building with the incredible sale prices from General Steel. That's right. Start saving money every month on renting space from others. Just call 888-74-STEEL to see how General Steel can help you save money.
It is not the government's job to supply welfare housing, welfare everything. It's this, all of a sudden the state does it. The churches don't do it anymore. The privates don't do it anymore. We're going to have just nothing but a town of rental housing everywhere. If we don't come to grips with single family has to be developed. We can have programs for that. Workforce assistance. This isn't workforce housing. This is for lower income housing.
Man, I think First Ward City Councilman in Jefferson City, Jack Deacon, must have been listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri yesterday morning. Stephanie, didn't you make that point? Because they put the fancy name on it. This is workforce development housing. Didn't you make that point yesterday?
And I said, what's the difference? What's the difference between workforce housing and low-income housing? Isn't this the same thing?
Marsh, didn't you make that point yesterday, too? As my remember don't always work so good, but that's the way I recall things. It's the name I put on it. It's the marketing. Sell the sizzle, man. That was the big topic of discussion. Jefferson City, so they've approved 3 different proposals for workforce development housing.
And I will say, they did, part of the point is the tornado did destroy a lot of low-income housing. And if you recall, the pictures you saw online were basically, I think at one time they were called the Broadmoor Apartments right there, like behind the old YMCA. And so it did destroy, and then it kind of went through downtown. So I think probably the inventory of available housing is probably a little bit on the lower side. But, the fact that, it's hard to find a low-income place to live isn't a problem that's unique to Jefferson City. We're, nationwide. Jefferson City is still one of the most affordable places you could probably live in the country.
Guess what they talked about in the city council meeting in Columbia last night?
Council Bill 13222 is a resolution expressing support for replacement of downtown public housing units on Park Avenue and the Columbia Housing Authority's associated application to the Missouri Housing Development Commission for low-income housing tax credits.
They're not trying to sell the sizzle, Marsh. It's low-income housing. We're not even going to try to lie to you. We'll call it what it is. And listen, just so you know, I can't speak for Stephanie, but I'm not heartless. It's not that it's great, but I just don't think you should take my taxpayer dollars. Let me take Cousin Andy's taxpayer dollars and give me a place to live. I'm on board with that idea. By the way, let's welcome Cousin Andy. I feel like it's the Major League Baseball trade deadline. Everybody in and out. Producer Hannah is back.
Hello.
She's off the injured reserve list. Brian Houseworth is gone. I want you to meet Cousin Andy. That's what we call him because he stops by from time to time.
Just so you know, he's not gone forever. He's not like traded away anywhere.
We're not eulogizing the guy.
No.
Yeah.
Something like that.
We've traded for Cousin Andy and a player to be named later. A news director to be named later. Mr. Marsh is here too. It's Stephanie Bell.
Morning.
My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you this morning, 874-9390, 874-9390. Love the honesty by the First Ward City Councilman in Jefferson City saying this is low-income housing. And he also highlighted kind of this rub between East Side versus West Side.
And plus the perception that the East End is a horrible place to live in is you're going to drive another nail in the coffin. Larry Rice did a horrible job to the East End, and we're just now recovering for it. And no, I think it stinks. I think it's dirty.
I admire honesty in politicians. I think it stinks, and I think it's dirty. I love that. I appreciate that. And there is always kind of that rub, that East Side, West Side, old money, new money. Who gets the new high school? Which zip code do we put it in?
It's been a long-standing thing. It was a thing when I was a kid.
And he's saying, listen, this is just going to kind of further that. Meanwhile, so there's some of folks that they want. There's this law regarding homeless camping. And this is a statewide thing. So now there's a new lawsuit filed by advocates against the Missouri. There's a Missouri law. It restricts homeless camping. And again, this is not anybody being cold-hearted. It's just reality. We know the problems, for example, in Columbia. And, John, you and I have talked. Columbia is like they market almost. They sell the sizzle. Hey, Come here, man. We got all the goodies for you. We'll give you a place to stay. We'll let you go to the bathroom in our Johnny on the spots. Let you hang out at the Wabash bus station. And then what happens, because we're seeing now leadership in downtown Columbia is going, we encourage people to come downtown and spend their money here. And now we're realizing this is not a good idea. You've got business owners who are going to go to work this morning, and before they take the key and open up the door to their small little local business in downtown Columbia, they're going to be clearing away feces and spraying down the urine smell and all that. And then city leaders go, maybe we should quit doing one or the other if we're marketing people to come to downtown. And it's causing problems for business owners, which, by the way, Nikki Davis with the Downtown Improvement District, I have a lot of respect for what she does. And you know what that's like. You've done the same thing before.
Yeah, it's a lot of work trying to get the downtown business owners on the same page and then be an advocate. And sometimes, you want the city to be a partner and you want everyone to be pulling in the same direction. It doesn't always work that way. And so to be upfront and advocate for, essentially your clients, which are the downtown businesses, sometimes you get a little bit crossways with your government. But knowing that you need them too, you have to be respectful. And I think she does that balance very well. I think the last time we heard her kind of get a little bit frustrated was about, she said, hey, city, you promised us some lighting down here. We've worked together on it. Why can't we let's just, please do what you told me you were going to do. And I don't think she said please, but sometimes you got to be a little bit firm.
She said, dang it, do this. You said you were going to do it. Help somebody out, man. But the conversation we've had before with John say, okay, so then Columbia starts, well, we need to push these people out. Where do they go? They start heading north to Prathersville. They start heading south to Ashland. Then it becomes Ashland's problem, and then Jefferson City. I was going to say it's infectious like monkeypox. That doesn't sound right.
But it gets back to the issue we talked about yesterday with problems at the border, and now people saying, whoa, 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 not in my backyard. Yeah. So you got a lot of people in Columbia who, aren't heartless, who have compassion, who say, let's do something here. And then when it comes time to decide where, they say, whoa, 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 I'm all for the homeless, just not right here.
And we're seeing that, for example, Lori Lightfoot, mayor of Chicago, Sanctuary City. We're Sanctuary City. If you're an illegal immigrant, come here. We're not going to bust your chops because you're here illegally. So then the Texas governor, Greg Abbott, starts sending them there, and all of a sudden she's like, whoa, she's quoting Stephanie Bell. Not in my backyard. She's freaking out. The mayor in Washington, D.C. is calling the National Guard. Hey, help us out, man. We got too many illegal immigrants here. And they're going, well, but you're a sanctuary city, right? Well, yeah, but... by the way, we're going to cover some more of this morning. So there's a new lawsuit filed by advocates against this Missouri law restricting homeless camping. It basically allows Eric Schmidt to sue local governments that don't enforce the ban, and it aims to redirect money towards specific camping areas for the homeless. Again, as long as it's not in my backyard, that's how that's gonna shake out. And I want to highlight, because I always find this fascinating, and I don't know why. City council meeting last night in Jefferson City, almost 5 hours. Columbia City Council meeting clocking in at 6 hours. Stephanie Bell with Ellinger and Associates and an older woman in the city of Ashland. How long was?
I think we hit 45 minutes.
Nice work, Stephanie Bell.
Good job. Well done.
And we had a pretty we've got kind of an annexation issue, so we had a lot of folks step up from the public and comment, and a pretty lengthy discussion on one of our issues, and still kind of muddled through it. But it's been kind of an ongoing thing for us. There are some nights where we've done a 2-hour meeting, but last night we seemed to be moving quite swiftly.
I'm watching these meetings, and I don't know if you noticed this, John, but I was watching both of them, and specifically I'm thinking about Matt Pitzer in the city of Columbia. He's from the money zip code 65203, and I'm watching him. And listen, I appreciate anybody who becomes an elected servant. I have a certain amount of appreciation for the idea that you want to do that. But a lot of these people, they're getting, I don't know, like a $600 a month stipend in the city of Columbia. And you get into, 5.5 hours, 5 hours and 45 minutes. And I'm looking at people like Matt Pitzer, and I'm thinking, if he had a cartoon bubble above his head, he would say, "Dear God, I'm not running for re-election again. I just can't do it. It's crazy."
And
It's not low-income housing. It's workforce development housing, John.
Well, and I think there's a good balance because I hate when I go to a public meeting and it's just rubber stamp, rubber stamp, rubber stamp, and you don't hear anything. And you don't, as somebody who's not behind the scenes, you don't get a feel for why things got decided the way that they did. And so I can appreciate public bodies that really deliberate and have those conversations out front, because then, you know, as a citizen or a stakeholder, you feel like, okay, I know at least why this is happening. And so I do think there's a good balance. At the same time, you know, if you were a member of the public and you're, or maybe a mom, you know, maybe you have an early morning job, whatever it is, and your things last on the agenda and you're sitting there at 9:45 missing your kid's bedtime just because you're trying to
Come on, man.
to give your input, you know, I think that kind of frustrates part of the process.
Count me in as a yes. I got to go tuck the kids into bed. Dinner's on the table. By the way, City Councilman in Jefferson City, Ron Fitzwater, is going to join us 6:35 because these are some impactful things that are happening, things that are going to affect us. And I love this. And I don't know that you ever hear the phrases controversial and Dollar General. In the same. Those phrases just don't go together, but that was kind of one of the things last night in the city of Columbia.
A little bit, yeah. They denied a proposal to build a new Dollar General in East Columbia, which, if you've ever been there, I mean, it's also kind of that low-income area just a little bit, and there aren't as many shops over there, so maybe that was why they wanted to throw another Dollar General in there, give a chance for some of those folks who don't have a chance to drive, just they can walk to the store. That was the support for it. And then the opponents were saying, well, it's going to drive traffic and make it all crazy. They're worried about wildlife in the area. They also pointed out to the fact that there's a Dollar General about 2 miles down the road on Clark Lane also. And ultimately, those reasons were enough for the council to say, yeah, let's nix this.
And people went out and spoke, and I appreciate people go to city council meetings, even if I don't agree with what they are saying. They go and they speak, they voice, and that's what those city council meetings are for. And it was a lesson for me. You know, we stereotype a lot because it works, but this is one of those. We talk about Dollar General and the type of neighborhood that it was going into. I would stereotype, oh, they'll take that in a heartbeat. And the people there didn't want it. Stereotyping does not always work. So besides Councilman Ron Fitzwater, he's here at 6:35. Some of this impactful stuff that's happening here in mid-Missouri, he's going to talk about that. And then coming up, we are, 62 days away from the general election. Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District candidate. He's going to be here. I want to ask specifically about, and I'm always curious, maybe I'm the only one, like, you got us, right? We already know how we're voting. But what are you telling those people that are politically unhoused,
Under her leadership, Massachusetts will be more expensive, more excessive, and more restrictive. So when it comes to your rights, your freedoms, your wallet, your businesses, and your kids' education, I declare Maura Healey to be the people's worst nightmare.
You know, that dude's not exaggerating. Jeff Deal getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. Gavin Newsom, for example, it's the mindset. It's that mindset. Gavin Newsom in California yesterday saying, oh, Californians, you need to cut back. They do this in China. Here are the hours you can use your air conditioning, and we'll highlight this audio coming up later so you don't think I'm talking out of my rear end. Gavin Newsom telling Californians, you can use your AC during this time. That's getting us into today's Daily DC Rundown.
Apparently, you got like an Amber Alert on your phone, a notice that said, right now, turn it off. No, don't use it.
But what if I need to drive my car and take my grandma and mom to the hospital?
No charging those electric cars. Well,
you can do it after 8 o'clock tonight. My goodness.
Well, Jeff Deal, who was the Trump-backed candidate for Massachusetts governor, did win, I think, the true test of the Trump endorsement. You know, obviously, I think Trump's done really well in the primaries. The real question is how well are those candidates going to do in the general? Jeff Deal will face Maura Healey, who would be the first openly gay person and the first woman elected governor of Massachusetts if she's elected. But he will face her in the general. I think we're close to the end of the primaries. We got to be getting close. On to the Senate race. Dr. Oz is, he did that weird video about charcuterie or crudité.
Crudité.
Very bizarre. Now he's stirring up controversy because he's calling out Fetterman, saying, you got to debate me. Of course, Fetterman is recovering from a stroke, and they're saying, nah, he's not going to debate. He's still recovering. And so, they're questioning his fitness for office, but stirring up some trouble there. I think, as we get, what do you say, we're 62 days out, as we get closer and closer, we're going to start seeing a lot of these races, especially the high profile ones, flaring up. Over to the courts, Judge Eileen Cannon is getting a lot of criticism from her decision to appoint the special master. Even Bill Barr, I guess, was talking yesterday and said that her decision was deeply flawed. Some other folks were saying, well, it shows that Trump's getting special treatment. I think yesterday, and what was in her opinion was, well, the raid was kind of unprecedented, so the special master thing is unprecedented, and we're kind of living in unprecedented times.
Shot. Every time we use the word unprecedented.
Right. Also over in the courts, I guess Steve Bannon has said, or someone close to him have said, he expects to be charged in the New York state criminal case. If you recall, he previously got in trouble for donor money related to the border wall. Trump pardoned him, but that was in the federal case, and so we expect to see some action on that later this week. Also, the debate on abortion is flaring up in South Carolina's State House. There's a debate in their Senate State House that starts this morning. And, you've said that issue is going to be really important, and Democrats are finding a way to keep it in the forefront.
Even prior to the Dobbs decision, majority of Americans, one way or another, this is beyond a moral issue, but the majority of Americans, even before Dobbs, are okay to some extent with some types of abortion. I think it'd be a big issue coming up 62 days from now. Ron Fitzwater, City Councilman, Jefferson City. Some of the impactful things that could affect our lives here in mid-Missouri. He joins us 5 minutes from now.
If you're a Democrat, you love it because Republicans are forced to talk about Trump taking classified documents to Mar-a-Lago instead of inflation, economy, the crisis at the border, or crime.
Karl Rove, he's right. Regarding the big topics, I had to laugh the other day when dictator Biden gave that speech from Philadelphia, and NPR Philadelphia is running headlines: Philly police can't keep up with rising homicide rate. And Joe is in that city where the police department can't keep up with the rising homicide rate, and he's talking about MAGA and USOBs and stuff like that. And those issues, Carl, and I agree, inflation, perspective. Producer Hannah and Stephanie Bell. Stephanie, who just turned 29 for the 7th time last week. Never seen anything like this in your lifetime. And I think that's real perspective.
Yeah, inflation, I think, Joe Biden's kind of on a victory lap or whatever in his mind of, we've passed all this legislation and it's helped people. But I don't feel helped in the last year at all. And I do think, we shouldn't be talking just about the raid. What about, is it Eliza Fletcher, the woman who was, snatched out of a run off the street due to crime? And that's what really affects people day to day and what we should be talking about. Because if you can't feel safe in your own home, in your own city, in your own state, we have a real problem.
I heard somebody say yesterday, I was hanging out at Colton's Steakhouse in Jefferson City, and just kind of an offhand conversation, and they didn't know who I was. I didn't know who they were. And I kid you not, well, they're only, and this was not an employee there, but I overheard somebody talking, well, the news is just on that because it was a pretty blonde girl who was killed by a black man, allegedly. And I wanted to go up, and I've learned it's not polite to go out to people I don't know and tap them on the shoulder and say, excuse me, but that's not the issue. The issue is this guy has had a long, extensive criminal history. He did it again, and it's these people like Philadelphia where the president goes and look at how good of a job I'm doing, and NPR's running headlines. The police there can't keep up with the rising homicide rate. You got Chase Boudin, the DA in San Francisco, who even the people in San Francisco are like, this dude's a little progressive for me, and he ain't tough on crime. And I think about the family, and we think about, some of these things we see here in mid-Missouri with progressive politics. And I know we use that phrase a lot, but that's that real mindset. You have people like Gavin Newsom telling you can only use your air conditioning during certain times. These are all real stories. Welcome into the show. Stephanie Bell. Producer Hannah is back. Cousin Andy is here today. There's John Marsh. My name is Branden Rathert. Some things that are impacting us right here in mid-Missouri. Jefferson City Council meeting for 5 hours last night. Is that a little long, Councilman Fitzwater, or is that about on par? 5 hours?
I do believe that is a record since I have been on council. Good morning. I appreciate you reaching out to us here in Jefferson City this morning.
Well, we're glad to have you here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. So obviously the big thing, the housing, and this did not sail through. Can you kind of bottom line this? It was tagged as workforce development housing. I do appreciate the comments of City Councilman Jack Deakins that this is low-income housing. Kind of bottom line what happened there for us.
Well, we had a proposal, and we knew something was coming. We had been looking at this. We'd received some funding from state government through some CBDG funding, disaster relief funding after the tornado. So we knew something was coming, but these proposals just kind of got dropped on council very quickly, and we just had a long discussion on differences in philosophy of how we're going to address issues. It was good people in the room, a lot of people, most people in the room, people I respect. We just had a different opinion of how to get to where we are in Jefferson City and what vision we have for the city. We understand we have a great need in being able to provide housing for individuals that live in our community. We understand that we lost 150 plus or minus units in the tornado. We have replaced some of those. We have other ones coming online. But most of the discussion centered around what is the long-term vision of this city? How do we grow this city? What's the most appropriate way? Is it single-family housing? Is it some other options? And we just had a good discussion. My contention in leaving the room is large issues like this ought to be resolved with a little bit more unanimity amongst us council members, but the system is majority wins, and that's what happens. It was a 5-5 vote, and the mayor broke the tie, and we're moving on with the proposals, or at least they now go into the next step, and we'll see where that takes us.
And here's the kind of the moral philosophical issue I have. Listen, I'm not a cold-hearted person. I like to donate to charities, and I believe charities do a great job, but I also believe city government, state government should not act in a charitable role. But let me ask you this before we move on. Is that tightrope a little bit more narrower because does have a lot to do? And I heard the numbers. I'm reminded of the numbers and the damage that the tornado did here 3 years ago. And it's like, yeah, that was a lot of stuff. Is that tightrope a little bit more narrower because we're talking about a huge natural catastrophe in effect?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a difficult discussion. Some of my concern was this was laid on most of the members of council about a week ago when we got our packets on Thursday. Now, as chairman of Public Works, I knew these type of projects were coming at us. We didn't know where they were or what the final formula was, and I just don't think it's good public policy to have something that comprehensive dropped on council and expected to make a decision after, I guess it was about 3 hours of testimony from the public, a good interchange of ideas. One of the things I was trying to do is get us to push it back one additional meeting to give us time to talk to the people that were pro and con that have been talking to us over the last 4 or 5 days and say, was there anything that was said tonight that changes people's opinion, and how should we move forward? But yeah, we're in a marketplace where employers are saying we can't hire people because they don't have a place to live. They want to live here in the capital city. So we're trying to be responsive to that. I mean, that's our role in some respects. But we also have to be responsive to what do we want this capital city to look like, not a year from now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. We did not grow the last decade. And my contention is we didn't grow much the decade before that. Are we doing something wrong? And does this decision just continue us down that same path of eventually non-growth?
Well, I think they're moving to Ashland is what they're doing. And by the way, this is an issue that's not just it's not affecting just Jefferson City. It's affecting several towns in mid-Missouri.
Missouri Housing Development Commission for Low-Income Housing Tax Credits.
That was City Council in Columbia last night. They're at least calling it low-income housing. City Councilman Jefferson City Ron Fitzwater joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
No, this would not be through the housing authority. I think one or more of the builders may have approached the housing authority, but this is clearly private developers coming in and building housing. Now they're using public financing to assist them, so that always comes with strings on what's the mix of individuals that are going to live in the units. How much can you make, and you have to be within margins that are established by the federal government and state government. But it's private developers, which is a positive thing. It's controlled, so it's going to be a broad range of individuals that hopefully will live in these units. That's what we were told last night as we went through and tried to look at what the mix was. But it's not public housing as people think of public housing. It's not Dooley Hamilton Towers and some of the other areas that we currently have in the city. These will be freestanding. In fact, one of them in the center part of the city are duplexes, which I think will fit in that neighborhood much better than a multifamily. So it's a different mix, but again, it's a philosophy that it's hard to drop a comprehensive plan like that on city council and expect us to be able to make an informed decision in just a couple hours. And again, I did a lot of reading over the weekend. I've talked to a lot of people. I tried to get the background, and I assume most of my council colleagues did the same thing. But still, you've got to get in the room. You got to get in the mix. You got to get in the arena and hear the arguments pro and con. My style is I need to assess everything I've heard and pull it together. You know, I probably would vote the same way two weeks from now. But I think the people that were coming in, we had a room full, which was really nice to see people engaged in city government. And I appreciate you working and asking us about city government, what's going on here in the capital city. But I don't think you make these kind of decisions as quickly as we were forced to make them last night. I just don't think you make good decisions. I hope this works out for our community. I mean, certainly now that the majority has spoken, I will be an advocate for the project and we'll move it forward. But I'm just not sure that's the way to make good public policy long term if you have a vision for where you want this city to be.
So with an eye toward the future, I was wanting to find out what are the kind of the next big issues coming up before Jefferson City, and then also as we kind of approach the next legislative session, I think Jefferson City does a fairly good job of, you know, really putting some pressure on the State House, and, you know, because Jefferson City and the state are so intertwined, you know, asking for funding for certain projects or collaboration, you know, over like with respect to MSP, you know, do you have a legislative agenda? And then on the council side, what are the big issues?
Well, I think from the council perspective, there are probably three issues that we're really focused on. One, you guys have talked about, joked about on the show, is parking in downtown Jefferson City. It's
guilty.
Just a continuous problem. We understand that. But we've got the state of Missouri that is talking about a $300 to $500 million investment around the Capitol complex. That is going to impact our downtown parking. But it also gives us an opportunity to work with the state, which has been my contention since I've been on council, that we work closer with the state on the needs of downtown, because unfortunately our parking needs are condensed into a 3, 4, 5 month period, and then it's a little more sane downtown. So parking is definitely one, and I chair our Public Works Committee. We have taken that very seriously. We're making some tweaks to our parking meters and moving toward electronic meters and trying to be more responsive to people that are visiting the Capitol. On the other end of Capitol Avenue, we've got the Missouri Prison site, the proposed convention center and hotel complex. State of Missouri is putting at least one office building down there. We've got a couple private associations that have indicated they want to be on site, and we know there's other potential opportunities for that site. So the second issue that we're spending a lot of time in Public Works and, you know, behind the scenes is trying to pull that project together. And we had a conference call yesterday with the State of Missouri and the developers and some individuals and trying to pull that prison site. It's going to be an exciting opportunity for the capital city.
City Councilman Ron Fitz, well, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm running out of time here. City Councilman Jeff City, City Councilman Ron Fitzwater, I do have 20 seconds if there's something you'd like to add, that if you want to add something to be of service to citizens here in mid-Missouri.
Well, I just appreciate the fact that you do a great job of covering all of central Missouri. I appreciate that you looped Jefferson City in this morning. We did have an interesting meeting last night, but thanks for all you do in trying to get the message out to our constituents. Sometimes it's hard, and we appreciate the partnership. So congratulations on the new format, and thank you very much for working with us.
Stephanie Pell and producer Hannah. 62 days, final stretch. November the 8th. Are you ready? Are you all set to vote? Are you going to show up? I'm interested to hear. Coming up on the show later this morning, 7:35, 4th Congressional District candidate Mark Alford is going to be here. And maybe it's just me, but I'm always like, you got us, right? You got us smart, independent, conservative people. But what about those people that, let's say, maybe regretful Biden voters, regretful Democrat voters, and there are millions of them? I'm always interested to hear what these people actually on the campaign trail. Because, listen, you can go to the Columbia Pachyderm meeting. You can go to the Cole County Republican Club and talk. And everybody, you got them. But what about those other folks? That's what I'm anxious to hear about. He's going to be joining us 7:35.
I think it was Rick who said it was 61 days. And I just Googled, and I do think it might be 61 days and not 62.
Well, see, and I just Googled, too, and I've got 62, and I even sent the link. How many days until November the 8th?
This internet source says 61 days.
See, mine says 62. 60 plus days till the election. Welcome into the show, Stephanie Bell. My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you. You want to fact check us? We are always open up for a fact check if we get something wrong. 874-9390. One of our show hosts here on the radio station heard them talking about this dating website, and I guess there's a dating website out there for everybody who is into everything, good, bad, indifferent, laughable, whatever it is. But the host was George Norrie, who does Coast to Coast overnight here on the radio station. And it's a dating website for, like, only if you believe, like, in Bigfoot and stuff like that, which I thought we were talking last week. We did What's Hot with Hannah, and we were talking about there's a website for conservatives that want to date, which I thought was actually kind of an interesting concept because, and I don't get on the dating websites, but, like, there's hashtags like hashtag feminist, hashtag BLM, hashtag LG. So all these people can hook up that, politically agree and have braids in their hair and smell like patchouli. But there's nothing for conservatives, apparently. And
Wait, did I miss you trying to get a date?
No.
Did I miss that while I was off work? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, I did not try to get a date.
He's been perusing all of the dating sites.
Ooh.
No, I heard...
He's in the market.
No, I'm not.
But don't yuck someone else's yum, Branden, because for some people, believing in Bigfoot is a deal breaker. You've got those things that are deal breakers, but for other people, they're like, if you don't believe in Bigfoot, I'm not down.
Imagine that first date at Coldie's Coffee, and you're like, yeah, okay, so you're an accountant, you do this, and do you believe in Bigfoot? That's the deal breaker. Coming up, what we're doing to help our veterans here in mid-Missouri, Dave Griffith, state rep, going to be joining us about 7:10 here on the show.
Directly next to the fire station, seems like a pretty safe place to have homeless people camping out and stuff like that to me. And largely it hasn't been a security concern for me in any manner. I've had nothing but pleasant experiences with many of the homeless people in the area.
That's a dude who owns a business by the Wabash bus station in Columbia, speaking last night, city council meeting. And he said, he gets up and he says, listen, I know we've been talking about this for a long time. A lot of business owners upset, a lot of taxpayers upset about this, but here's a differing viewpoint. I rather enjoy having the homeless. I don't know. I would say that's a minority opinion. I don't know how many business owners find it enjoyable to go and clean up other people's feces every morning from in front of their small local business that they've worked very hard for. And it's an important thing because for years, Columbia's like, yes, come here. Home. They almost had up billboards out on I-70. He says, if you're homeless, come on down. I'm exaggerating. They didn't do that, but that's kind of the mindset. And you think about what happens because now leadership in the city is going, man, maybe inviting them to come to downtown where we also invite people to come down and spend their money, maybe it's just not a good idea. And now they're trying to find other solutions. And where might they go? I don't know, Ashland, Jefferson City. And then we try to help out under the guise of workforce development housing, affordable housing. And I'll go back to, I did a documentary on homelessness 12, 13 years ago. And it was an interesting perspective. I like to talk to panhandlers around town here. The majority of homeless people that I have talked to, they do not want help. They don't. And so quit throwing my taxpayer dollars at it, man. Oh, by the way, and looks like your water rates in the city of Columbia. You know, here's the thing. I get it. Once in a while, you've got to increase rates. But I wonder, you know, your burger, your cheeseburger at McDonald's has gone up. Since the tragic events of January the 20th, 2021, your gas prices have gone up still way, way above what they were. All these things go up now. Utility rates go up, and this goes up, and that's going up. The cost of a car is going up. This is, and I wonder, has your salary gone up? Have you gotten a raise over the past few years? You know, because you got all these entities. Well, it's just a 10% increase. Well, it's just an extra dollar to the base fee. It's just well, everybody keeps going, well, just a little bit. Every little bit counts. It adds up, man. Do the math. It all adds up. Welcome to the show. Here's Stephanie Powell.
Good morning.
Mr. Marsh is here. Producer Hannah is back. Glad you're back,
what up?
Man. My dad's he mad at me over the weekend.
Again.
And I told him, I said, yeah, I get it, Dad. Hannah gets mad at me all the time, too. I have to share that with you coming up just a few minutes from now. Right now, I want to bring in, by the way, my name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you, 874-9390, 874-9390. Want to bring in State Representative Dave Griffith. He has done a lot of work as it relates to veterans and mental health as it relates to veteran issues. Welcome into the show. And so here we are. It's September the 7th. We're 4 days from the from 9/11, and we talk about these folks that still have issues, whether it's 9/11, whatever it is. What are we doing specifically, Representative Griffith, to help veterans here in mid-Missouri?
Well, good morning, and thanks for having me in today. I do want to tell you that at the end of the session, I approached the Speaker of the House and I asked him, I said, we've been talking about veterans issues with mental health and suicide for the last 4 years that I've been here, and we really can't get into a real deep discussion into it when we have hearings during session. And so an interim committee really can do a deeper dive in it and really get into the weeds and try to find out what's going on and to try to put a halt to the staggering numbers that we have of the number of veterans that have committed suicide. The hashtag 22+1 has been the moniker for a long time. And unfortunately, because of COVID, those numbers went up to 25 to 28, and now we don't really have a full grasp on it. But during our hearing that we had on the 31st, I got some really staggering numbers. The number of people men and women that we lost in Iraq and Afghanistan was somewhere around 8,000. But the number of veterans that we've had that have committed suicide since that time is over 30,000. That's a staggering number. So when we look at that, then I think we're going to try and find some solutions. And there's no quick fix for it, but I think there's a number of things that we can do. And so we're looking at doing that. And the committee that I've got is doing a really, really good job of that. And so I'm proud that I'm able to be the chairman of that. And then we've got our next committee meeting is going to be, matter of fact, a week from today on the 14th.
State Representative Dave Griffith joining us this morning on Wake Up Missouri. Republican 60th District basically represents Cole County, and I think this is it's important work. As a matter of fact, ducking into a little bit of the hearings that you had last week, I got to say, and I give kudos to this guy, John Morlock. He's a veteran. And he told the story. He's a survivor of a suicide attempt. And, a lot of people, and especially veterans, because we love our veterans' mental health, especially as it relates to our veterans. But this guy then being willing to share that and be open about it, because sometimes that's one of those things people, and I get it, makes people uncomfortable, but it's a real thing, especially for people that sign their name on the dotted line to protect our country. Can you tell us a little bit of, as much as you can, Representative Griffith, a little bit of his story?
Yeah, he was a medic when he was in the Army, and one of the first deployments that he had was down in Honduras and in El Salvador, and there was a civil war going on down there, and he saw some really horrendous things. He went into a village where the guerrillas from El Salvador had gone into this village, and they had actually cut up with a machete, cut up women and children. And that particular event for him was something he just couldn't get over and never did get over. Sorry, it just kind of bothers me to be able to hear his story.
Yeah.
He put a 357 Magnum underneath his chin, and he blew the top of his head off. And he kind of kiddingly said, "I gave myself a frontal lobotomy." But he went through a number of surgeries and had his whole face redone, and now he's sharing that story with all of us. And to really put a face, with the story, you hear about horror stories like this all the time. But for somebody to be able to tell it with the truth that he was trying to get to all of us, and how important it is for us to be able to spend some time to listen to what these veterans have got to say, and try to help them through the adjustment of going from military to civilian life. And for many of them, they can't do it.
I appreciate that, Mr. Griffith, sharing the story, and to hear how emotional you get about it. And we hear these stories, we talk to these people, and we meet them, and somebody who has a spectacular story like Mr. Morlock, who served our country and then is willing to share that. And I know, you having served in the Army, 8th Special Forces Group as a Green Beret, I know, we all see things, and sometimes people take it to that place that Mr. Morlock did. But then the beautiful thing is that I always think being able to share that experience. Listen, if somebody's going to talk to me about mental health, I'm not getting it from a psychologist or a counselor who went to school and learned this stuff because they just learned it. It's what they were taught, but somebody has the experience. It's incredibly important. Our guest, Representative Dave Griffith, District 60, Republican, basically reps Cole County. He's joining us this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question, John. And really, that's going to be the focus of our next, not the focus, but it's going to be a real big part of our next hearing that we're going to have next week. We're going to bring in Welcome Home that's there in Columbia. And we got the founder and CEO of the Veterans Community Project in Kansas City. And I visited the Tiny Homes Project there. And I'm telling you, it's amazing what they've done. it's amazing the support that they got from the community, because every room that's there was bought and paid for by volunteers, and it wasn't paid for by the state. It was all private money that paid for it. So those kind of projects that they've got, and being able to try and visit with them to see what we could do to try and integrate them back into society. And it's something that they work out every day. Welcome Home. I've been out to Welcome Home and visit with those folks and toured their facility. So locally, we've got some people that are really doing some amazing things to try and help the homeless veterans and really commit them to where they don't think about suicide, and that they feel like somebody is going to be able to watch after them. And Branden, you really brought up a really good point. For a lot of veterans, in order for them to really have their story told, and when they start talking about their experiences when they were in outside the wire and downrange, for them to talk to a trained psychologist or psychiatrist is good for them, but they can't say, "I know how you feel," because if you haven't been there, you really can't say, "I know how you feel."
That's right.
And so when they're one veteran on veteran, and that's a good thing, because they do know. We do know what you feel, what you're going through, and the more we can get veteran on veteran, and I found out in some of the discussions I've had here recently, it really takes that war. So it takes somebody that was in the Vietnam War to be able to understand that Vietnam veteran. It takes somebody from the Iraq or Afghan War to be able to understand that veteran. So every war is different, but we at least start having the conversation.
Yeah, we've really found that when we have the Central Missouri Honor Flight Radiothon, that's one thing we hear is just the veterans talking to one another and sharing their stories is really the most impactful thing about the trip. And so your work is so important as you face next session. Is anything crystallizing as far as what you and the State House can do to help these veterans?
Well, I think that, and a good question, Stephanie, because I think that we're looking at the whole purpose of this hearing was not to be able to bring about new legislation. That was not the purpose at all. The purpose of it really was to try and flesh out some things that tangible things that could be done. And I think as a result of this, we're finding out that the 988 system that we've got is not fully funded. So these are things that we uncover during the interim committee and during those hearings, to where we can address that when we get into session, and we can go to the budget committee and say, we need to get funding for this. This is really important for us to do. So as we move through this, I think we're going to be able to find ways that in some things we need to do, and that we can do in this next session.
All right, State Representative Dave Griffith, 60th District, Cole County. We got like 15 seconds here. Anything else you'd like to add that we can add for you to be of service to the citizens of Mid-Missouri this morning?
Well, I think that you can. Next week, the hearing is going to start at 8 o'clock in the morning in here in room 1. It's going to go from 8 to 10:30. We have caucus meeting at 10:30, but if anybody wants to come physically come to the meeting, they're welcome to do that. If they want to, it's going to be live streamed, so you can listen to it that way. So there's a lot of opportunity for the public to be involved, and I appreciate you all taking the time to do this.
We appreciate what you do, State Rep Dave Griffith, this morning on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Coming up 7:25-ish, we are going to
An 11-year-old landed one of my dream jobs, and I'm kind of jealous. I'm not going to lie.
7:25-ish, which means it's 7:20. Time for What's Shaking with Steph. So we renamed.
I was going to say, did I get new intro music? What the heck?
Since Steph was doing What's Hot with Hannah, something we do every morning right about this time, just something fun, different, maybe something to talk about with your coworkers when you get into work this morning. We called it What's Shaking with Steph, but typically it's What's Hot with Hannah. What do you got for it? And by the way, we are so glad that you are back.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, it's always good to see your smiling face here on our YouTube channel at Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
You guys didn't get into any trouble while I was gone, did you?
I don't think so.
I guess we'll find out in the next few days, huh? No, so this is a story that I hope you haven't covered in What's Hot with Hannah while I was gone, because it has me written all over it.
Okay.
It's about a Little League baseball player who went viral a couple weeks ago during one of the Little League World Series televised games. He's from Webb City, Missouri, which is kind of in the Joplin area. And on the Chiron, when he was up to bat, it said his name, Brody Jackson, age 11, 4'11", and his dream job was a chicken nugget taste tester. Which he went viral for that, of course. And Wendy's saw an opportunity. And they reached out to him after they won the game against Iowa that same night and basically offered him his dream job of being a chicken nugget taste tester. So they treated the Webb City baseball team to like a chicken nugget feast, basically, and Brody gets free chicken nuggets for a year, I think.
Name, image,
likeness. I like it.
11 years old. Kid is cashing in. I love it. Coming up about 5 minutes from now, we're going to hear from Congressional, 4th Congressional District candidate Mark Alford. Anxious to hear what he's hearing from kind of the undecided, middle-of-the-road voters. He's here 5 minutes from now on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
If you're a Democrat, you love it because Republicans are forced to talk about Trump taking classified documents to Mar-a-Lago instead of inflation, economy, the crisis at the border, or crime.
Karl Rove, I agree 100%. Inflation, the economy, crime. And I love this because Joe Biden last week yakking in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, Philadelphia, NPR, an NPR headline, Philadelphia police cannot keep up with the increasing murder rate. So the crime, inflation, the economy, the crisis at the border, and it is a crisis. It's not a conservative talking point. And Joe's in Philadelphia that has a skyrocketing murder rate, and he's talking about MAGA and Trumpers. Want to bring in Mark Alford, candidate, 4th Congressional District candidate, seat currently held by Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler. So I want to ask you, Mark, are you doing, and I, by the way, I don't run campaigns. I'm just a voter. I'm just a regular Joe Schmo. Are you talking about these important things when you're in mid-Missouri, when you're campaigning in the 4th District?
You know what? First of all, Branden, Stephanie, John, thanks for having us on this morning. Really enjoyed being with you. You know what I'm hearing from people out in the district as we continue to travel, and we are doing so. We still have a general election to go. November 8th, and we are traveling. We were in Columbia and Jeff City yesterday, and we'll be in the southern part of the district later next week. But we're still hearing people are not so much concerned about what's going on in Mar-a-Lago, what documents were taken or what were not taken. They're more concerned about the inflation. The inflation is still hitting farmers hard. It's hitting families hard. They're having to choose between filling up their tanks or filling up their stomach in a lot of cases. And that's really what's on the minds of the people in the 4th Congressional District.
All right. We're joined by 4th Congressional District candidate Mark Alford here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Well, I'll tell you a little story about that. We were at Lincoln Days in St. Charles back in February, I think it was, and Senator Blunt came up to me and we started talking, and I said, Miss Senator Blunt, I'm Mark Alford. I'm running for Vicky's seat. Oh, I've heard of you. You're that recovering reporter. And so I kind of took that line. Since then, I've gotten several other monikers. Billy Long has taken to calling me his mini-me. Now, I don't know if that's a compliment or what, but he's been a lot of help in giving me advice in the last couple of months. The governor, Governor Parson, who I met with yesterday, a couple of months ago, he called me the firecracker. So I figured out in a short amount of time that in politics you get a lot of nicknames. Not all of them are good, but I'm taking them as such right now.
Now, we had Congressman Luke DeMeyer on the show earlier this week, and I'd asked him, there are a lot of concerned folks right here in Boone County about following redistricting, that the county is split. How do you plan on, working with Congressman Luke DeMeyer in the future on, a split county, on Boone County?
That's a very good question, Stephanie. We had talked about that a little bit when we were in D.C. a couple of months ago. That was before the redistricting came out and really before we actually knew where the lines were going to be. And now that we do know that Boone County is split north and south along Broadway there in I-70, Vicky Hartzler's office is currently in Blaine Luke DeMeyer's district now. And so we're going to have to be moving that office north of Broadway to provide services there. And I do intend on meeting with Congressman Luke DeMeyer when we're in D.C. next week. I'll be meeting with the delegation there and other leaders in the party and NRCC, and we're going to be talking about those issues, about how we can best serve the people of Missouri.
Senator Blunt calls him a recovering reporter. A lot of folks around here knew him as that Kansas City TV guy. We call him the 4th Congressional District candidate on the Republican side. I want to ask you kind of, I guess almost the campaigning stuff aside, more of a personal question, Mark. Mm-hmm. Do you, when you're out campaigning, when you encounter, I'm not going to ask if you are, I know you're, because there's millions and millions of them. There's hundreds of thousands of regretful Democrat voters in Missouri, hundreds of thousands of regretful Biden voters here in mid-Missouri. But when you get somebody that's politically ambiguous. They don't necessarily vote party line. What do you tell those people?
I tell people that the Republican Party is the place to be. When you look at what's going on in America right now and the attitudes that have developed, let's look at the truth here. We stand for the truth. Republicans stand for the truth versus the lies, the deception, the confusion that I think a lot of Democrats are throwing out there. We stand for order versus disorder, the chaos, unrest, and really the uncertainty that's going on in America right now. I think Republicans stand for reason versus emotion and irrationality and instability. We're also the party of solutions. Instead of finding faults and problems and crisis and despair, we're looking for solutions. A good example of that is finishing the wall that President Trump started in Mexico. We need to work on solutions for America. And finally, I think this is the most important part in how I've been able to win over Democrats. And yes, there were a lot of Democrats who pulled a Republican ticket to vote for me because they saw that we're also the party of inspiration. And I think, in the 80s, it was more so with President Reagan trying to inspire people to greatness. And that's what I want to bring back into America, into Missouri, and really help our party develop this inspirational tone that let's work together to make people better within the confines of the government as it should be, but inspiring people to greatness.
Now, you had said when you have been campaigning, you've heard a lot about folks worried about inflation. And I think Democrats right now are saying, well, it's not going to be the red wave you thought it was, partially because of the Dobbs decision and folks' views on abortion. So as you've been campaigning, and as time has passed since that decision, have more people been talking to you about that issue? Do you feel like it is, or are more people still concerned with everyday things like inflation?
I think people realize that the Democrats are the party of the extreme viewpoints when it comes to abortion, that up until the moment of birth, they want to be able to abort a baby and have the government pay for it. And when you start realizing that that's the extreme viewpoint, there's not much argument to the entire thing. And so when we're going around, we're talking to voters, they know that's what the Democrats stand for. And I think that's why they're turning more towards the Republican Party, who has a more sensible viewpoint.
Congressman, I keep saying congressman like it's already done, and that's not intentional. Not yet. Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District candidate, joining us here on the radio station this morning.
Right. Election integrity is so important, and Missouri has made some great strides this last session to make sure that we have voter ID, that we have people who are actually supposed to be voting in our elections and not having the collection of ballots, the harvesting that have gone on in other states. Everyone, I think both parties are concerned with election integrity. I think the Republicans more so because we have seen in this last cycle in 2020, and I think if you've seen the 2000 Mules movie, I had one reporter ask me, he says, well, some of that's been debunked, And I said, well, really, what part? And they couldn't really answer that. And I said, even if 1/10 of that movie is true, we are in trouble. We cannot let again what happened in 2020, where 4 states circumvented the Constitution of the United States of America and went their own way in determining their own election laws based on the executive rather than the legislative bodies of those states. Because of a man-made virus, they used as an excuse to change election laws, and that cannot happen again.
All right, Mark Alford joining us. And I want to highlight something here real quick. So, and one of the things I think, that Stephanie and John and myself we're very big on is we make sure that we're not just spewing talking points. We prove, we back up what we say. To your point about when we talk about these voters that are politically ambiguous or they voted for Biden and they're realizing, maybe I do have conservative values. Maybe I am going to vote for Mark Alford in the 4th Congressional District. When you talk about Democrats lying, I have 2 quick examples that come to mind. And I want to play these here real quick. Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas a couple of months ago.
What I meant is precisely that. The border is closed.
He was doubling down, saying the border is closed. That is a complete lie. And also, as it relates to the border, I think this is KJP, Karine Jean-Pierre, White House press secretary, say lying. And here's the thing. People hear this, and as a longtime, very popular reporter in the Kansas City area, people hear what you say, and they believe you at face value. Karine Jean-Pierre saying illegal immigrants just don't walk across the border.
Somebody unvaccinated comes over on a plane. You say that's not okay. Somebody walks into Texas or Arizona unvaccinated, they're allowed to stay. Why?
But that's not how it works. Like, we actually, no.
I know that that's not what you guys want to happen, but that is what has happened.
But it's not like somebody walks over.
So, to your point, they lie. Those are flat out bold. They're just simply lies. And I hope that the politically ambiguous, regretful Biden, regretful Democrat voters, they heed and hear that stuff. These people are just lying. So I want to make sure we're backing up what you're saying when we talk about the progressives and how they lie and why it's important. Mr. Alford, anything
Well, that's all they have.
Yeah, just lies. I mean, we saw Joe Biden last week in Philadelphia, in the city, that has an NPR Philadelphia has a headline. Police cannot keep up with the climbing homicide rate, and Joe's there talking about the very opposite of unity and insulting people like you, Mark, and insulting people like me. Anything else you'd like to add before we move forward?
I did record a rebuttal immediately after the president's divisive, derisive speech, which he really castigated half of our population in America. And really, I called him the divider in chief. I know others have used that term. I'm not into name calling, but I am into calling out people when they're wrong. And I think this president has lied to the American people. He has gaslighted the American people. I call him the marionette president because I think there's someone else pulling the strings and has been for a long time. And so I encourage you to go to our social media page, Mark Alford KC on Facebook, and watch my rebuttal. It has it's 3 minutes and 47 seconds, I believe, but it's really I think a concise rebuttal to the lies and deception that the president of the United States spouted on last Thursday. Thank you for your time, guys.
Thank you. Mark Alford, 4th Congressional District candidate, joining us this morning here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, coming up about 5 minutes from now. Am I exaggerating? And I'll defer to you and Steph, but I thought First Ward City Councilman in Jefferson City, Jack Deacon, spitting fire last night as it relates to the housing proposal.
I mean, if I had to sit there for 5 hours, I'd be spitting fire too.
John, you think I'm exaggerating to say he was spitting fire? You be the judge. We'll highlight some of what he had to say regarding workforce development.
It is not the government's job to supply welfare housing, welfare everything. It's this, all of a sudden the state does it. The churches don't do it anymore. The privates don't do it anymore. We're going to have just nothing but a town of rental housing everywhere. If we don't come to grips with single family has to be developed. We can have programs for that. Workforce assistance. This isn't workforce housing. This is for lower income housing.
Jack Deacon, First Ward City Councilman. Jeff said, I think he was listening to Wake Up Mid-Missouri this morning, because I think I heard two different people make that point yesterday, that this is not workforce development housing. It's low-income housing.
It is, and I would take a little bit of offense. My husband is in the business of property management and rental housing, so just like there's going to be rental housing everywhere, and that's bad. I think every thriving society needs good rental housing of all price ranges. But yeah, I mean, I in particular, I think what I found really interesting with Ron Fitzwater, who was on the show, his interview, he said this was just like rushed through. Like he got the first wind of it last Thursday. And, being on the board of aldermen, there's been a couple things that have come up, there where I was like, where is this coming from? And I do think, as somebody who sits on a local city government, it's not your full-time job, so you're trying to do it in the off hours. He was saying he spent a lot of time reading this weekend and trying to get up to speed. And I think some of these things are really important decisions. And here, the future of your city, how do you provide for these people? How do you, where are we headed as a city? And that's a longer term, I think, discussion than a 4-day thing. And so I was disappointed to see the procedure. I don't know why they didn't just table it, but Fitzwater said, hey, my vote would have been the same in 2 weeks. And I think maybe people were of that opinion. You know what? We could table this and keep having the conversation, but we really know where we're at on this.
I think the other thing that was even more interesting, because there's kind of a conflict of morals and philosophies, in that kind of like Mr. Deacon said, yeah, we should have places for people to live of all income levels. Should Stephanie Bell take money out of her pocket and give it to that? Should it be taxpayer dollars? And I thought Councilman Fitzwater had that is a very narrow tightrope to walk. And it might be interesting to see if Gary Nolan covers this on the Gary Nolan show today, because Gary Nolan, he is absolute in his stuff. This is not the government's job, absolutely, positively, without a doubt, is my guess. I can't speak for Gary, but I know Gary pretty well. But then there's kind of that, okay, but for the long-term benefit. And I thought, and by the way, you'll be able to hear this on the podcast at 939theeagle.com, kwos.com. We usually do have the podcast posted, usually 10:30-ish, 11-ish, depending on the day, but you'll be able to go back and hear that. He joined us in the 6 o'clock hour this morning, talking about, yeah, that's okay. There's kind of an internal battle for a lot of people. I don't think it's the government's job, just as Mr. Jack Deacon said. But we want the area to do well. We want Mid-Missouri to do well. Everybody, I don't know if people are leaving Jefferson City and moving to Ashland, but we want to develop. We want everybody to do well. By the way, city council, and the other thing he said, he thought in his time as city councilman, he thought it was a record at almost roughly 5 hours.
And Columbia said, hold my beer.
6 hours. And then Ashland said, hold my martini.
45 minutes.
Coming up just a few minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri on KWOS 93.9, the Eagle. It's one of the things we hear a lot. Well, I don't care what's happening in California, and it doesn't matter. I want to highlight something that Gavin Newsom said, and it relates to electric vehicles. And we have what percentage, according to MoDOT, what percentage of vehicles 2035 do we expect to be electric here in Missouri? We'll do that about 8:10.
If you're a Democrat, you love it because Republicans are forced to talk about Trump taking classified documents to Mar-a-Lago instead of inflation, economy, the crisis at the border, or crime.
Karl Rove, agree with him. And I might be a little guilty of it, too, because so many people are fascinated with this. But it's the economy, it's inflation, it's crime, it's what's happening at the border. And these are all things that affect us, even here in mid-Missouri. People might say, but we never did get an answer to the question. I was just curious, not trying to challenge anybody. But, you know, we have love for small local businesses and the challenges that you have to. You're a small local business owner. And we asked kind of rhetorically a couple of weeks ago, like, if you're struggling to find good people. There's another gas station, 63 in Grindstone. It was one of the few bastions of those places that are still open 24 hours. Not this morning. Not open this morning. There's a sign, sorry, we just don't have the people. But what I was wondering, if you're a small local business owner, and, you know, you're adamantly against illegal immigration, it doesn't mean you're a mean SOB. It just means, hey, this causes issues. There's got to be a better way. But as a business owner, as a conservative business owner that's against illegal immigration, would you hire an illegal immigrant to help your business, to help you continue to do your business? And it was just, I'm not asking unless you want to answer off the text, 874-9390. But seriously, I just wonder about that.
No, and I mean, but it is the number one thing I think people are talking about is the struggle with hiring. And I think more, and I had this conversation with someone yesterday, and you know, here's the struggle too, is you're not getting as qualified folks. So you're still having to hire, and essentially you just need warm bodies sometimes to fill these spots. And more what I'm seeing is really qualified, good employees being frustrated by their employer bringing in folks who aren't as qualified and saying, you know what, I'm sick of having to train these yahoos who can't do the work or who are lazier or who won't show up or whatever, right? And employers are saying, but we need help. And the quality employees are like, but not that help, you know, because it's causing more culture fit issues within. And for the employer, ultimately, long term, you're going to lose some of your better employees, I think, because of that issue. But as an employer, you're kind of stuck, you know, in a catch-22. I mean, leave those positions open and dump all the extra work on your quality employees, or bring people in who might need a little bit more coaching and training to get up to speed.
Can you just work the counter and smile and go, hello, welcome into the really? And it was funny because we were talking about this last week. Gordon Deal, host of America This Morning here on the radio station, was talking about quiet quitting, which is something we covered last week. Like, people, nope, if I'm here from 8 to 5, I'm here from 8 to 5 and not a minute longer. I will not do more than what's asked of me. I will not do it. And that's probably maybe something more prevalent now.
Yeah, I think so. And people, I mean, we paid people to sit at home and we didn't, Joe Biden did, but he paid people to sit at home. And now, you know, when people come back to work, they're picky about when they want to come to work, how they want to come to work, what they want to do. And it was the government that has really put us in this situation. And so, you know, I have expressed frustration as an employer. But I think what we're not realizing, it's putting a lot of stress on existing employees as well, because they're picking up extra work and being frustrated by folks who maybe, you know, aren't qualified in the roles that they're in.
You know who's not a slacker? Mr. John Marsh is here. How are you this morning, bud? Producer Hannah is back.
I wish we could get here at 8.
Right. What was the highlight of your trip?
I just got to spend a lot of time with my family. This is an annual trip that we take every year, and this year my twin nephews got to go for the first time, so we got lots of baby snuggles. So it was just a good time.
I have a good friend. We've been friends 40-something years, just became a grandma, and somebody taped her walking into the room for the first time. And I can be a softie sometimes. You know this about me. I will get a little emotional. I get embarrassed by it. But just watching this video of this first-time grandma, like, reacting to her grandbaby.
No.
I know. There's Stephanie Bell is here, too. My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you, 874-9390, 874-9390. So, percent MoDOT. So some states, California has done this. There's some other states looking at it. And right now there's talk, and I don't know if they've put money towards it yet, but MoDOT is working on putting in an electric grid, but kind of a network of charging stations, because we're all going to be driving electric cars one day, whether we like it or not. And I hate that idea. I hate it. Don't like it. Love that new Hummer H3. 2 reasons I won't buy it. Number 1, it's electric. Number 2,
it's like 100 G's.
It's 112.
Very expensive.
There is that, John. 112 grand. MoDOT, according to a recent article, and this was in the Jefferson City News Tribune, the percentage. So California says by 2035, we're taking away your freedom of choice. You're not going to be able to buy, nor are you going to be able to sell an internal combustion engine. We're taking away your choice. And then there's other states, I think, that are wanting to follow suit.
Correct.
There's something Stephanie Bell's covered in the Morning Bell more than once, which we do, something we do 8:25 every morning. Missouri, if I'm remembering right, like, was it 5% or 0.5%? Maybe it was 5%. 5% of vehicles in Missouri, they plan on being all electric here in Missouri, which tells me we're pretty smart. We ain't getting on board with that. And believe me, I know every time I bring it up, people get mad, but I'm telling you, it's just the way. I really do believe it's the way it's going to be. Dodge, man, they are iconic when it comes to muscle cars. The Charger, the Challenger, they're not doing those anymore. They're going all electric.
The town that I was in Iowa, the Hy-Vee grocery store had probably 10 Tesla charging stations in the parking lot, and that was the first time I'd really experienced that, and it was weird.
Yeah, I mean, that's what they want to do that because you have to spend like 30 minutes charging your car, so you have no other choice but to go in and shop. But yeah, no, I mean, I spend a lot of time on Highway 63, and it used to be when you saw a Tesla, you were like, ooh, a Tesla. I haven't seen one of those before. And now, I mean, they're all up and down 63. I think, particularly in Boone County, we see a lot of electric vehicles. But you have to be concerned as, what we're seeing in California right now, where they're like, don't even turn on your air conditioning. What if you needed to charge your car to get to work?
Or what if you need to take grandma and ma to the hospital and you live in a place like California? Here's why these things, so people will say, well, California, I don't care what happens in California. It doesn't affect me. And there's people in Massachusetts and other states right now that are going, holy crap, that stuff does affect me, because now we've got our leaders here that are saying, hey, why don't we do what they're doing in California? So I want to highlight something for you. Gavin Newsom, governor of California. Like, this guy is so handsome, he gets on my nerves. You ever know people like they're just so good looking that just on premise they get on your nerves?
I believe that's called jealousy.
Maybe that's jealousy. I'll own up to that one. It's like I'm jealous of John Marsh. He is so good looking. Like, I see John and I'm just I'm all just a Twitter.
It gets kind of disgusting in the studio sometimes.
So Gavin Newsom, check this out. Yesterday, so they're having weather in California. It's warm there, and it happens sometimes in the summer in California. Sometimes it gets hot. But check out what he, in the first words in this recorded statement that he puts out yesterday.
Everyone has to do their part.
That just strike has to. You have to. Everyone has to do their part. And I want you to listen carefully to what he says next, because I've heard people like Randy Tobler, host the Randy Tobler Show, weekdays here 4 to 6. Talked about, well, China, they tell you when to turn on your AC and how high you, and that's real stuff. It's not just complaining, but they for real do that stuff in China.
To help step up for just a few more days. So pre-cool your home.
Is he talking about COVID? Because isn't that what they told us? Hey, you have to get the jab. You have to do your part. We all have to work together. We need you to step up. Get that jab.
You have to. John, how do you react when somebody says you have to do something? Yeah.
Earlier in the day when more power is available.
So when there's more power available, then you can go ahead and plug in things like, your car.
And we encourage you to close your windows and blinds to keep your home cool as well.
That just strikes me as weird. Keep your windows, keep your blinds drawn. For real. It's like Biden, Pennsylvania with that menacing red background.
And today and tomorrow afternoon, after 4 p.m., in particular 4 p.m., please turn your thermostat up to 78 degrees or higher.
That is hot. 78 degrees?
And that is just...
I would die.
And it's just weird. That's exactly what they do in China. They tell you when you can turn on your AC, and then, oh yeah, only 78 degrees.
And of course, this is all climate change. I did see a tweet, and someone tweeted out an old newspaper, and it had been like 120 in California. And they're like, wait, hotness in California is nothing new. We've dealt with this before. And this guy said it's just an abject failure by California Democrats to build infrastructure to sustain their population growth. And I think that's exactly it. But they're refusing to take the blame for it. So, of course, it's all climate change and your fault for, wanting to sleep coolly at night.
Right. And by the way, if you talk about, look at the number of lakes when they talk about these lakes. Oh, the lake is at its lowest level ever. Remember, the majority of those lakes, they are man-made lakes. In other words, people built a lake where Mother Nature did not intend for a lake to be. And he continues, Gavin Newsom not done.
Meine Arbeit für Richtiges. Ob du glaubst, dass ich
Wrong audio. It sounds remarkably similar, though, actually. 874-9390. Bill, welcome into the show. What's on your mind this morning?
Hey, it's Gavin Newsom's story is funny because it just came out last week. It was on national news that Gavin Newsom's in-laws have donated to the Ron DeSantis campaign as well. That not only that, donating money, they have moved out of the state of California to Florida to get away from their son-in-law's policies. They said that he is ruining that state.
Yep.
So, I mean, how would you like to go to that Thanksgiving dinner?
And Bill, thank you so much for being a part of Wake Up Mid-Missouri. And this kind of stuff matters. It's not complaining about the California governor. It's that mindset, that progressive mindset that Trudy Bush Valentine, Senate race against Eric Schmidt. I know what her campaign anthem is. I can imagine what her policies are. And if somebody like that gets elected, that's how these things affect us. Telling you when to turn on your AC, telling you what temp, freaks me out. Coming up, we're going to do the Morning Bell business news with that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you. What do you have for us today?
Let's stick with EVs. A new consumer survey out telling us about the brands.
All right, it's coming up. We'll do that like 5 minutes from now here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. 8:25. It's time for the Morning Bell business news with that little twist that only Stephanie Bell can give you.
So we talked yesterday about how Apple has its big event today. They're debuting some new really expensive iPhones. Something they aren't debuting yet is a new electric vehicle. But people know that they've been kind of in that space, partnering with people. They have obviously some very good technology. And so there's a new survey out, and people were asked, where do you, if there was an Apple car, where does it kind of rank in your level of preference? And actually, Apple was basically, everyone said, yeah, we definitely consider an Apple car, even over and above Tesla, over and above Toyota, or it ranked third behind Toyota and Honda. And so Apple, number 3, not even out yet, but they said like Apple has so much loyalty and love from their consumers. And again, like every Apple product I have, I love. I could not live without my AirPods or my iPhone or my iPad. Granted, they're never all charged at once.
I was just getting ready to say, you have to live without them at some point, because you come in every morning, I forgot to charge my phone.
My watch.
I forgot to charge my Apple Watch.
Today, my watch is definitely dead. So, if I had an Apple car, there would be some mornings I just wouldn't make it here, friends. But I do think, we talk about, in the same way we kind of talk about politicians, and I said, like, all along, I think Joe Biden didn't have the same hateability quotient as Hillary Clinton, and she's hated. I think he's getting there. But, it's interesting to see it with brands and how, and I think you can, people love DeSantis, and they have this like passion for DeSantis, and they like people, you talk about him, you see people, and I think, to some extent, Bill Clinton, people early on, really, he was kind of engaging and people really liked him. And so I find that interesting that people, they don't even care what the product is. It's not out. There are no details, but they have so much love and trust for Apple that, Apple could come out with like the worst car ever. They'd probably still buy it, and I think there are politicians out there who have built up like so much love or so much hate that regardless of what they do, you've got that either brand loyalty or that hateability. And Apple apparently is on the upswing here.
Can do no wrong. Last time I recall, outside of the Morning Bell from yesterday, the last time I remember Apple making news was an airline pilot threatening to turn this plane around from Cabo.
So here's the deal. This continues while we're on the ground. I'm going to have to pull back to the gate. Everybody's going to have to get off. We're going to have to get security involved. And it's vacation that's going to be ruined. So you folks, whatever that airdrop thing is, quit sending naked pictures. Let's get yourself to Cabo.
That's the pilot of a Southwest Air. They're getting ready to fly to Cabo, and the airdrop thing, quick explainer on this?
It's just a way to transfer photos. Was it like a whole plane full of swingers or whatever? I'm flying on Friday, and I want to turn my airdrop on just to see what happens.
So I didn't do this with nude photos, but I used to do this on Mizzou's campus. I'd be in a big lecture hall, and I would like airdrop funny memes to random people, and it was just entertaining. I don't know.
Do they know it's from you? Does it say who it's coming from?
So it will say the name of your iPhone. So like if you've named your iPhone with your name, they'll see your name. But you can just have your iPhone say iPhone, and you receive an airdrop from a mysterious unnamed iPhone.
Sounds like a good way to get like a virus.
No, I'm just sharing memes. Come on.
I think that is funny to drop stuff anonymously, especially in a class like at Lincoln or at Mizzou, and people look around. Is it you? Who's doing that? By the way, there is a big thing happening here in mid-Missouri. It's been in the works for a while. Lakeside Ashland. We are this close to opening up. Nic Parks joins us before 9 o'clock. And coming up 5 minutes from now, I think we're going to open up the listener mailbag. Something you want to say, get us a text right now, 874-9390.
Chris Jones, Second Ward. I would like to say that everybody on the dais up here, except for Pat Fowler, should be ashamed of themselves tonight.
I like that. Pat Fowler, one of the city council folks in Columbia who loves to hear herself talk. Her supporters coming out, and I don't even know what that woman was upset about. But last night, city council raising water rates, and every time it's every little bit. People, it's only this much, and the base fee is going up. It's only this much. Every little bit matters, and that because wouldn't that be nice if, like, every time, let's say your cheeseburger at the restaurant, it goes up just a little bit, and the next time at the gas station, the gas goes up just a little bit. And you're like, if every time that happened, like, your work gave you just a little bit more money too.
You would hope. You would hope.
That would be ideal.
I mean, I can tell this person who was speaking is probably a liberal because she's name calling, saying you should be ashamed of yourselves. So you MAGA Republicans or whatever, and it's just like them, and it's like Joe Biden, and it's like everyone else when they call you deplorable or MAGA or ultra MAGA or whatever. I've had to hear that before sitting on the Ashland Board of Aldermen, not. But more of a personal attack instead of really getting at the issues. If you don't like the utility rates, tell us that. Don't call me a name. Tell me an intelligent reason why whatever decision is being made you disagree with.
Still one of my all-time favorite moments from city council in Columbia was when somebody got up and I think they were addressing or talking about Matt Pitzer. And when I hear my city councilman on a conservative talk radio station, blah, 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 blah. Welcome into the show. This is, I may be exaggerating a little bit. That's what I heard. And
I wish I had $1 for every time you've said, I may be exaggerating.
But, by the way, and something really cool happened at the Jefferson City Council meeting last night. Besides all the stuff for the, I think one city councilman called it low-income housing. There was something actually kind of cool that I want to do a highlight. So we had almost 5-hour city council meeting. City Councilman Ron Fitzwater said he thought it was about the longest he'd ever been involved in. John, is that about, well, I'm asking you to go back 30 years here, but for a city council meeting in Jeff City, like almost 5 hours, is that like at the top of the list?
Okay, Boomer.
City of Columbia, 6 hours. City of Ashland,
45 minutes.
Stephanie Bell, who is an older woman in the city of Ashland.
We're getting a Taco Bell. That's the big news. Yeah, right? Very exciting.
Very nice. How are we on what's the restaurant that you're looking forward to getting there?
The Taco Bell?
No, there was another fast food restaurant.
Scooters, the coffee place. It's the building is up. So it's moving right along. And then Lakeside Ashland, I know, already has some events planned for this weekend. So and I think, maybe tonight, tomorrow.
As a matter of fact, Nic Parks is going to be joining us here a little bit before 9 o'clock, and this is a cool deal. And I was just out there a couple of weeks ago, and they weren't quite finished, but this movie screen, and Nic Parks, by the way, the joke is if you're in the business community in mid-Missouri, the joke I always hear is Nick needs somebody to follow him around to keep track of all of the ideas that are popping up in his head. Nick and I have, the one thing we have in common, we're thinking all these things but I'm always chasing and following the squirrels, and he follows through.
Yeah, if there was ever like a serial entrepreneur, he fits that bill pretty well.
This Lakeside Ashland was out there a couple of weeks ago. The movie screen, and they've got the lake there, and they're going to put in a beach. There's going to be, just everything this guy has envisioned, but we are getting this close to it being open. He's going to be joining us shortly here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Producer Hannah is back. We are so glad that you are here.
Hello.
We missed you. My name is Branden Rathert. Something we can do for you, 874-9390.
Letters. I get letters.
We don't get any letters.
So many letters.
We get texts.
A whole bunch of letters.
Sometimes
I'd even read mail from a cow.
Facebook messages, 874-9390. 874-9390. Recently, a few minutes ago, we were talking about in Missouri, and I did fact check myself here in a story from the News Tribune regarding its The headline from the Jefferson City News Tribune: Missouri creates plan for electric vehicle infrastructure. And according to MoDOT, quoting the story, according to MoDOT, 5% of vehicles in the state are projected to be all electric by 2035. Doesn't seem a lot to me.
No, Leroy chimed in and said, hey, Hannah, Hy-Vee on West Broadway has a bunch of charging stations.
Interesting. I apparently don't get out much.
874-9390. 874-9390. Jim says First Ward Coma was spitting nonsense last night, as usual. You know, a lot of those. You know who I feel bad for in the on the city of Columbia Council. I don't feel bad, but 6-hour meeting, and that's usually city council meetings in Columbia pretty long. But I'm looking at some of those people, like Matt Pitzer especially, as I'm watching this meeting. And, you know, the people come up and go on and on and on. And I'm thinking, like, if you've been in office for a while as a city council person, are you thinking, dear God, I'm not running for re-election again. I can't do this.
I mean, I feel bad for the city staff, right? A lot of times they have to be there for the meeting, available to answer any questions, whether it's an hour or 6 hours. And they don't have the choice to be a quiet quitter, really, on most days. I will say I did enjoy this comment from Darren. He said, I find nothing wrong with quiet quitting. Go back 30 years ago, there were no emails or cell phones. When the whistle blew, you were off work. If the boss needed to work, someone to work overtime, they'd ask. And I do think that's a good point. I mean, having this, interconnectedness and cell phones does kind of, mean that you're available 24/7. And so, whereas before you really weren't. And so, are you... I think there's a fine line between putting in your time and making sure you're doing the very best you can and being taken advantage of. And you do, in certain circumstances, I would agree with Darren that you do need to draw the line for yourself and for your mental health and for your family. But I appreciate a hustler.
That's right. Because look around you. I mean, who got ahead by working 8 to 5? And especially if you're salaried, I mean, whoever really got ahead just doing the 9 to 5 and doing nothing more. Now, if I'm clocked in, that's so.
We know those people who are like watching the clock and at 4:50 are like lacing up their tennis shoes, ready to packing up their bag, ready to get out. And personally, I mean, that's not the kind of job I want to have to show up to every day either. If I just can't even stand to be there. I hope people can find work that they find meaningful, and I get not everyone can, and everyone has good and bad days at work, but I hope people can find a job where it feels like you're contributing and you're having fun and you enjoy it, and that you don't feel like you want to buzz out of there 15 minutes early every day.
Maybe they put some money in your bank account a couple of times. The challenging part, I think especially when you're younger, is saying, hey, listen, my job, my profession is not my number one priority in life. That's me personally. My number one priority in life is not my job. If I had a job, thank goodness I don't have to go to a job and show up every day. I don't have to work. But my number one priority is not my work. And sometimes I think when you're younger, it's hard to say, especially when you're starting out. You got a little bit of relief because Joe's going to give you $10,000 to help pay off some of your student debt. But to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do this. And then also being an employer who understands, listen, if your stuff ain't right at home, if your stuff ain't right personally, you're not going to do the best possible job for me. Marsh, you got anything in your mailbag over there? Uh-oh. Are we in trouble? Okay. And so kind of the bad rap, and it's kind of interesting, City Councilman Ron Fitzwater talked about this earlier this morning, that, we have our moral and philosophical convictions about government money. You shouldn't take my taxpayer money and throw it at this, throw it at that. There's some things that we're just very uncomfortable with doing. But
Yeah, my understanding of what's going on in Jeff City is that they're trying to apply to the Missouri Housing Development Board, and what they needed from the city was a resolution in support of their project, so then they could go to the state and say, look, I want to compete for funding, and the city supports my project, and that's what they got last night from the city council. So it's not a done deal, but the city support when you're trying to get the
The kids didn't want to go at first, so we told them we would buy them a dog. We're a year and a half here, and we don't have a dog yet, so we're delaying all we can.
That was kind of cool. That's Brian McGraw. He is the superintendent of the Jefferson City School District, speaking at the meeting last night, Jefferson City Council meeting, and I thought it was cool. Even one of the city councilmen, Scott Spencer, today. I think that's great that you're here and kind of, just keeping the community apprised of what's happening with some of our local kids. Before we get into the Gary Nolan Show here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri, Stephanie Bell, producer Hannah, my name is Branden Rathert. Want to bring in Nic Parks. Nic Parks does a lot of stuff for Mid-Missouri, does a lot of stuff business-wise, but ultimately for the community. He has some changes happening at Shiloh, but want to start with Lakeside Ashland. I remember when Brian Hausworth first started talking about this a couple of years ago, about this big, because it was a concept. It's going to be this thing, it's going to be this movie theater, and it's going to be this lake and all this. And got to go out there a couple of weeks ago and to see a concept become reality. What a cool thing to experience. When is this opening?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, well, we thought it was going to open like last year. Remember that? Yeah. And then it was going to be this July, and here we are. But I knew it was going to open at some point. Hold back my excitement, and now it's here. So, this is a soft open phase. So the restaurant's not done, but we want to get people out there to experience movies, live music, sports watch parties, and private events. So we're ready. LakesideAshland.com launched a couple weeks ago. You can see the events that we have scheduled on there right now. But also you can reach out to us if you're thinking about doing some kind of private event. So we're ready to go.
So it's huge in the concept. So there's this giant, it's an outdoor, it's bigger than what I thought. We talked about an outdoor movie screen. I'm like, yeah, okay. But it is remarkable. It's beautiful with what's happening. So what's the first event? What can we do, folks that are saying, I want to check this out?
Well, if you are an Ashland area resident, like if you live in Ashland or you're a Log Providence neighbor, we'd like to invite you out tomorrow night for just a little open house between 6 and 8. If you're an Ashland area resident and you're interested in part-time work, seasonal work, and this would be a great place to to work, I would think. Come on out tomorrow night between 6 and 8. We'll have a little table set up for people interested in employment as well. We want to hire as many Ashland residents as possible. So if you're at Southern Boone High School, this will be an awesome thing to do during the summers. So it's just basically, Fred Perry put it together with Connections Bank, and I think it's a really good idea to give Ashland's kind of that first look. And otherwise, several months ago, these guys reached out to me wanting to do a rock climbing documentary. And back then I was like, yeah, we'll definitely be open by then. And so here we are, and I said, it ends up being more of a soft opening event, but they're selling tickets to that event. Real Rock 16, 4 short documentaries, rock climbing. And there's a lot of like rock climbing films on Netflix and stuff. I've seen a couple of them. Even if you're not into rock climbing, it's really epic stuff to watch, really cool. So definitely come out for that if you're interested in that. And then on the 10th, we got the big first away football game. And this was part of, I don't know licensing. I don't know like what's, I'm learning all these things. Like, yeah. I don't know, like if it was just, if I got DirecTV, I just show the game out there. And I talked to, Learfield Sports guys, Mizzou Sports Properties, about, this is what I like to do, but I'd like to do it more legit. I'd like to get, you guys to say, yes, you're not going to sue you. So we did the deal with Tiger Talk at Shiloh, and that's Wednesdays. And we actually had it this last Monday, and we're closed on Mondays, and the whole place was packed. Because nice. Yeah, I guess we'll open for you for your show, yada, yada. And then it was like packed. I'm like, whoa, this is really cool. This is going to be something. And in the past, it had been at Cheerleaders, and I think Buffalo Wild Wings before that. So in doing that deal, I said, yes, but I'll do that deal. But I also want to be official watch party, and for them to kind of condone and market that. So now when you listen to Tiger Talk, during that show, they're going to, hey, and for our away games going on. So that's really cool to be able to put that together.
I think one of the cool things for me too, I mean, you're a parent, so you kind of think these things through. And with the movies coming up, you know, I never thought about, well, yeah, a lot of those late night movies, you have to wait till it's dark. But with the technology that you have with your screen, you can show it in the bright of day, and the picture is just so clear. I've seen on your Facebook page some of those. So for the daytime events, you can have those as well on the screen.
And I don't want to cut you short. We got about less than a minute here.
Yeah, well, wait till you see it in person, because even I had high expectations, because we're like, let's go 10 feet bigger, let's go one grade better. And we did that, and we're still worried it's not going to look that great, but it ended up looking great, and I can't wait for people to see it.
LakesideAshland.com. You can see some of the pictures on there. Here's the thing. One of the things I dig about you. Number one is what you want to do for the community and your grand vision for mid-Missouri. It really is cool. Like, we have all these sports tournaments for high schools and all these things. Okay, we have all these people that are coming from Kansas City and Springfield and St. Louis. How do we capitalize once they're here? So we appreciate that. The other thing that I really dig about you is your ish. Yeah, we're going to open around this time-ish last year and maybe this time. And the licensing thing, yeah, we'll see. That's like how we'll figure it out as we get there. I appreciate it. LakesideAshland.com. Nic Parks, man, thanks for everything you do. Small local business owner, you hire people. Thanks for what you do in the community, and we'll look forward to seeing you here in the next few days at Lakeside Ashland, man.
Thanks, guys.
All right, getting excited. My dad's favorite show here on the radio station. It's the Gary Nolan Show. Gary Nolan coming up just minutes from now.